radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Yeah, man. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. Today's Wednesday, January 17th. 17 days into the new year, just 348 days left, and we are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Tonight we have two guests. L.A. Marzulli is up first tonight in the first hour to talk about the DNA results that are in from the elongated skulls from Peru. All right, so that's the first hour tonight. Yeah, are you ready for that? And then later, Rick Shaw in the second hour to talk about the near-death experience and also the Best of Watchers DVD that is coming out. I think it's out. And we'll talk about that. The Watchers series, which I have here, by the way, is a pretty dang amazing. All of them. Man, I look back and I think about Watchers 5, Watchers 6, Watchers 7, Watchers 8, right? Oh, just amazing DVDs. And so we'll talk about that tonight. And now I'm getting text from Steve Murillo. Murillo, if you're listening, I'm live on the air, Murillo. Okay, no texting during the show. No, you can text during the show. I'm just messing with you. Tomorrow night's another Fader Night with the No More Fake News Room with John Rappaport, followed by Open Lines All Night Long, of course. The call-in numbers are 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Facebook, YouTube, everything is Fade to Black. You know what to do. There are three little buttons that you click on over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow, like, and subscribe right now. You can also email throughout the show. I'll get to as many as I can. The email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Yes. You know, before I move on, the video that we posted and took down yesterday of the satellite, the feedback, the look, it's so funny. The video is a real video. The video is an amazing video. The capture of what is in the video, which appears to be the Grace satellite system, is amazing. And it's up close, and it's in color, and there it is, and racing by, and NASA zooms in, and you know, and I freaked out because I didn't see a satellite in my life that was like that, right? You know what? Okay, everybody, look, Jason Martell's calling. Hey, Jason, I'm on the air right now, and so are you now. No, I'm literally, hold on, I'm going to put you on speaker. Okay, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone out there.
Hey, man, I'll call you back after the show. Is life good?
Yes, all is good, and sorry for interrupting you live, but call me back. Good stuff offline.
Yeah, see, this is how important you are, Jason. Live on the air. I see. Yeah, I know, right?
So honored.
I had to pick up. I'll call you after the show.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye. Jason. Is that putting somebody, throwing them completely under the bus? In that video, the reaction that I have gotten is this. Okay, man, it may be the gray satellite, but why pull it down? Let us argue over it. Let us check it out. It may be the grace. It may not be, but the video was there. You pull it down, you're freaking everybody out. Put it up and keep it up and let us fight. Email over and over again with that point. I was just like, well, what do I do? Why would you want a video of a satellite up that I don't want that I think looks like a UFO, and it does, and it turns out to be a satellite? Well, I mean, why? Right? But so with all of this evidence that's out on the gray satellite and stuff, and the things that I know now, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'll redo the video, fresh narration with the Grace satellite information in there and some Grace satellite graphics. And I'll put it up there and I'll let you guys fight it out. All right? I'll let the comments just go and you guys can duke it out. But there is some interesting stuff in that video, not just with what looks like the gray satellites, but there is a third object in the video. And that's the part where I should have probably let the video up, because there is a third object there that pops up that has nothing to do with the grace. If it is the grace, it may not be the grace. I don't know. But so I'll do that for you guys. I'll do it for the community, and I'll get it back up there, and I'll let you guys duke it out. You guys, and I'm just letting you know now, I'm not going to get involved. That's all on you. All right. Okay. You got to give me a little time on that. I got to recut the narration. Our next event will be the Conscious Life Expo. It's coming up February 9th through the 12th at the LAX Hilton. Tickets and info are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the Conscious Life Expo banner. It's right there. I can't believe it. Now, listen, today's the 17th. This is coming up in less than a month. It's 3 weeks away now, which I can't believe. But I want everybody to come out there and hang out with us. I'll be hosting the Ancient Aliens panel on Friday. I'm going to host the party on Saturday. I'm going to be doing some emceeing and introductions throughout the event. We have a booth there with River Moon Coffee on the mezzanine, so we're going to be able to hang out and just talk and have fun all weekend. So please come and hang out with us. The Conscious Life Expo, February 9th through the 12th. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We have over 785 archive shows right there. Custom apps, Apple, Android, all platforms, just $2 a month. Go click on the podcast banner and subscribe. Help support the show. We update it every single day. You can also become a Fadernaut in our membership section on the site, and you can go and get everything that you want. Anything that you desire is there. You can get email, a private email to me. You get commercial-free downloadable archives if you wish, right? Seriously, no commercials. You can get the bunker cam. You can get Faded Black gear, autographed T-shirts, autographed hats, all of that right there in our membership section. And don't forget to visit all of our sponsors here on the show. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Jim Carrey is 56. Star of one of the most famous YouTube videos of all time. Jim Carrey on the red carpet in New York City. We're all, what does he say? Tetrahedrons, man. Isn't what he said? Oh, man. Jim Carrey. And there's a really good documentary out on him making the movie The Man on the Moon. Right? Okay. And if you haven't seen it, go watch that documentary. I don't know what it's called, but that is a showstopper. Go check it out. But happy birthday to today. Wait for it. Betty White is 96 years old. Betty White, 96. Kid Rock today is 47. And Darth Vader James Earl Jones today is 87. Our dead guy's birthday today is the one and only Eartha Kitt. 1927 to 2008, died at the age of 81. But yes, most remember her as a singer, right? Cabaret, all of that stuff that she did. Wait, she did that Santa Claus song. What was it? Hello, Santa. And most people think of that. I don't. That not me. She was Catwoman on Batman. Happy birthday. She replaced, what's her name? Newman. What was her name? Julie Newman? I can't remember the first Catwoman. Anyway, that's Eartha Kitt to me as Catwoman on Batman. OTD. On this day in history, 1961, Dwight D. Eisenhower ends his presidential term by warning the nation and the world about the increasing power of the military-industrial complex. The famous speech live on television on this day in 1961. Now, here we go. Fader fact. Check this out. In a study following the lives of 19,000 kids for 10 years, a study, 19,000 kids for 10 years, and I think that's a pretty good number. That's a pretty good pool, right? 19,000 kids for 10 years. The study showed that video games had no negative social behavior effects on our children. Julie Newmar. I said Newman. Julie Newmar. Thank you for that. Yeah, Julie Newmar. She was cool. 19,000 kids, 10 years. No negative social behavior effects. I almost don't buy it. Everybody popped up with that Julie Newmar. And I'm going to say that everybody said Julie Newmar here. It was a guy. It was a guy. Maybe not. That would be politically incorrect. All right. Yeah, 19,000 kids, 10 years. Tonight, two guests. First hour, L.A. Marzulli is up first to talk about the DNA results from the elongated skulls from Peru. And later on in the second hour, Rick Shaw is going to be here to talk about the near-death experience. And, of course, the Best of Watchers DVD. All right, tomorrow's another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom, followed by open lines all night long. Well, it happened. I mentioned River Moon Coffee. Bitcoin. I mentioned Bitcoin. Now, 4 years ago on this program, on one of the, it was a moment when I got into a little bit of a tiff with one of our guests on the show. I'm trying to think who it was. I remember the phone, it was from Ecuador. It was Ecuador. But we started to get into it on Bitcoin. And I have talked about Bitcoin a lot on the show, and for a lot of different reasons. But it's a big deal. And it's a big deal for those that are against it. It's a big deal, and they're going to stay there. It's a big deal for those that think it's the next big thing and no regulation, so that sits there too as well. And there's money being made and lost on Bitcoin. Bucket loads, truckloads of money are going down right now with it. Lots of energy is being spent on Bitcoin. Right now in Russia, there are people buying electric plants. Yes, to power the mining that is needed for Bitcoin. Now, there's a few Bitcoins left out there that need to be mined. I'm not going to get into those numbers now, but when you mine a Bitcoin, it used to be, I forget what, if you mined a Bitcoin, you were given 50 Bitcoins or 100 Bitcoins. There was a number. Now, and back then, let's go back 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, when you mined a Bitcoin and you got 50 Bitcoins, it was worth whatever, it was worth, $50 each, then it went up to $100. But now, mine a Bitcoin today, when you're looking at $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a pop, it's a big deal, right? Well, check this out. Last night, at the end of trading, Bitcoin had dropped below $10,000. $9,500. More on that in just a second. But it lost almost 10 grand in exactly 4 weeks because it was at $19,343, that peak value on December 16th, 2017, the day of disclosure. Is that irony, the definition of irony at its finest? Right there. But as of 7 o'clock last night, it was $9,555. Holy crap. That's a bucket load of money. Now, I feel for anyone who borrowed money last month. Bitcoin's just rising. I mean, it's just like, it's free money, right? Free money. Go and buy it, just sell it. Buy it this morning, sell it this afternoon, make some cash, right? That's what it was like. And for anybody that last month prior to December 16th that went out there and borrowed money, took a mortgage out on the house to go and get in on this Bitcoin thing, think about that. I feel sorry. I feel for it. I have empathy. Because if you lost that money, let's say you got in at 19 grand and last night, so you lost $9,000, right? You lost 9 grand in this market. Well, you lost it. No biggie. But you still, if you borrowed money, you still have to pay back that loan. Right? So you lost the value. So you lost that 10 grand, and you still have to pay back the loan. Ouch. I mean, seriously. Ouch, 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 ouch. That's money that has disappeared. It's gone. Now, you may be able to sit on it, and you might be able to get it back and ride this out. Okay? But let me explain something here. The stock market is one thing, and people are looking at Bitcoin as an investment like the stock market. Let me explain the difference between Bitcoin and the stock market. The School of Jimmy. So just listen to me right now. Okay? Get your education on. When you buy a stock, you own a piece of the company. And that company probably should have, most do, assets. Assets like maybe a factory, right? A factory. They've got a labor force, right? They've got inventory. You can touch it. Something goes wrong with that stock. Something goes wrong with the fact they're selling off assets and things. And, you are not ever protected in the stock market, but at least you can drive to the factory and look at it, right? It exists. Okay? There's something about that. You physically can touch it. Now, there's been fraudulent stuff on the stock market over the years. I can get into all of that, but without going there, the stock market is a tough thing to get into, whether it's NASDAQ, which is easier. But if you get a stock onto the New York Stock Exchange, there is so much vetting that goes on to get onto the New York Stock Exchange. And if you buy a stock in AT&T, you buy a stock in something like that, Verizon or General Motors or Samsung or whatever it is, McDonald's, I don't care. Physically, you know that these things exist. Okay? Now, with Bitcoin, you own nothing. You own nothing. Nada. Nothing. The only thing that you own with Bitcoin, and listen to me now and learn something. The only thing that you own is that you own that the hope that someone will pay you more than what you paid for it. That's what you own. That's what you own. That's it. Now, that's a crazy thought. That, my friends, is gambling. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing more. When you purchase a Bitcoin, you are hoping that somebody is going to purchase that Bitcoin from you more than you've paid for it. That's it. There's nothing physical to it. Now, when IRAs started, when all of this happened back in December, and that banks were going to get involved, and suddenly you were able to invest into Bitcoin for an IRA for your retirement, I had to take a step back. What are we doing here? You are, seriously going to risk your future on something that is nothing? That's crazy to me. And for those out there, just like that stock market crash in 2008, and I went through that. We all did. And there was another crash that was back in like 1998 with the tech stocks and the internet. That was a serious bubble that we went through too, because I was watching my IRA like double every week. It was crazy. And I put all of that into high risk tech stocks because it was just going through the roof. And then one day, and I felt it coming, man. I felt it coming, and I pulled out what I could out of that. And the next thing you know, it was like a week later, my IRA was like zero. Right? The ease of trading right now on your cell phone, you can go and get onto some Bitcoin exchange and throw in your info there, whether it's your checking account or your debit card, and it's easier with a debit card. But you can go and do that. And you can go and buy, $20 worth of a Bitcoin, $40 worth of a Bitcoin, and let it sit there, right? And you can do it, debit card done, transaction completed instantly on something that doesn't exist. And that is crazy. That is a bad temptation for people out there. Gambling like that is a temptation. And for those out there that can't control themselves, right? It's not a good thing. It's just not. Now, I'm not saying I enjoy going to Vegas. I enjoy the casinos. I have a good time. But that's with money that you can go and it's vacation money. It's money that you're going to throw away. So if you have money, if you have so much money that you can throw it away, whatever it is, $20, $40, $100, you could take a $100 bill, walk out into the street, and just throw it in the street and not care about it. If you're like that, then go and get into Bitcoin. But for somebody that is going to borrow money and go out and invest into Bitcoin, that's a bad position to be in. Because today, with what happened with Bitcoin, you have to pay that loan back. You have to pay it back. Now, I equate all of this, and this was posted up on Twitter today, and I stole the idea. I stole it, and I admit it, but Beanie Babies. Remember Beanie Babies? Okay, I went through a bad Beanie Baby time. I did. I had a daughter. Beanie Babies are happening. They're giving them away free at McDonald's, and my daughters wanted them every single day. So I jumped in on the Beanie Baby thing, and I started, to collect them. I was buying them everywhere, $2, $3, $4. Then I find out that there are some Beanie Babies out there that are worth thousands. There are some limited edition bears out there that you could buy for, $20, $30, $40, $50, and a week later they were selling for $100. I jumped in, man. I did. I was on a business trip. I'm in Nashville, and I'm with a couple of friends. We're all on this Beanie Baby thing. Worthless Beanie Babies. And we're searching out stores in Nashville to go, and we're going in, and I'm whipping out the charge card, and I'm buying this beanie for $75. Oh, you got one of these? Oh, man, I'll take that one. Oh, you've got the Olympic Bear, or whatever. I don't even know now. And I'm buying these things. I'm coming back to L.A. with my Beanie Baby stash. You know, I just dropped $1,000 on Beanie Babies and got the collection going. And a couple of years later, they were worthless. Worthless. I had, and Rita will tell you this, Rita and I, 2 hefty bags, garbage bags, full of Beanie Babies. I can't even tell you how much I spent. You know what we did with those? We gave them to a toy store. Walked in, I think the doll shop, and I go, dude, I got this. You know, check out these. These are worth, you know, $1,000 each. The guy that owned the doll shop, he goes, come here. He takes me down into the basement. Walks me into this room. I'm not making any of this up. Into this room that was full of garbage bags on the floor. And he goes, see those? Those are Beanie Babies. I can't sell those. I can't give them away. That one that you just showed me, whatever, you know, this $1,000 Beanie Baby. Walks me over to this garbage bag, opens it up, and it was full of these, whatever they were, some crazy thing. And I said, are you kidding me? And he goes, no, man, they're worthless. I said, how much will you give me for these 2 bags right here? I'm not kidding. $20. I took the $20. I gave him the 2 garbage bags full of Beanie Babies, and I walked out of there, and I cut loose of that. Beanie Babies are the same things as Bitcoin, except, at least with Beanie Babies, you had the garbage bags full that you could touch. In the end, if Bitcoin goes bye-bye, the market crashes, and they're all worthless. They're worth $1 each, 5 cents, whatever. The only thing you're going to have is you're going to have one of these. You're going to have a USB drive with your Bitcoin wallet with your 50 Bitcoins on it that are worth nothing. That's your memory. I'm holding it up to the video camera. And that's the truth. Need to be very, very careful. What were Beanie Babies were? It was a craze. It was an invented thing. It was invented. There was no value to Beanie Babies. They're brand new. They're not 25, 50 years old. They're not antiques. And it's the same thing with Bitcoin. It's a craze. That's all it is. And I get it. And this is the thing. And I get it. Here's the reason why I don't have a problem with Bitcoin. It's because some nerds, and in this case it appears to be Japanese, are sitting around and, you know, come up with this idea, you know, let's create some software money. Let's create some software money. Let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, cool, whatever. I get it. I'm into that. And it sounds good, but without regulation and oversight, which is what the nerd culture wants and understands, right? It's all about anarchy, and I get that. I understand it. But in the end, you end up finding out that sometimes a few rules existing on the outside is not a bad thing. Sometimes you need a little bit of the man in your life. And maybe these crashes and this thing wouldn't happen. Maybe there could be some insurance that could be there from the government in the future. Maybe. Make it that kind of currency, and we'll be okay. I'm just saying, it's a hard lesson to learn. And for everybody out there that's got to pay off that second mortgage that they got on the house last month, and, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they invested into this market, and then in 4 weeks, that $200,000 loan that they got is now, that Bitcoin investment is worth $100,000. You've lost that $100,000, and you still have to pay back the mortgage of $200,000. Oh, think about that. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with our first guest tonight, L.A. Marzulli. We're going to be talking about the elongated skulls of Peru and the DNA results that are in. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Natural Health Solutions with Chris and Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, how you doing?
Great, Chris.
Now, you're the CEO of GetTheTea.com, right?
Yes, I am.
What is GetTheTea.com? I mean, is this tea you buy in a store?
Well, no, it's not. Life Change Tea is just that. Life-changing. Life Change Tea is an herbal tea that gently cleanses your body from intruders.
What do you mean by intruders?
Well, intruders are toxins, chemicals, GMOs, heavy metals, and more. They're in our food, in our water, in our air we breathe.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
And Life Change Tea will help you with removing these, as you say, intruders?
That's right, Chris.
Are there side effects with this tea?
Well, you might lose a little weight. When you clean your colon, you lose weight, you feel better, and you have more energy.
Wow. Ronnie, where can people purchase Life Change Tea?
Oh, that's easy. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Ronnie, I want to thank you for being on the show. People, don't forget, GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. First up tonight, L.A. Marzulli is here. And this segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by Life Change Tea. Starting with their Super Strength Tea, we use Life Change products every day right here at Fade to Black. Just go to the Life Change Tea banner over at the website. Use the promo code FADER, F-A-D-E-R. You will get free shipping. All right. Now, L.A. Marzulli, author, lecturer, filmmaker. He has penned 10 books, including the Nephilim Trilogy, which made the CBA Best Sellers list. He received an honorary doctorate for the series from his mentor, Dr. I.D.E. Thomas, who was the provost at Pacific International University. I think L.A. has got a second honorary doctorate. I'm going to ask him about that in just a second. But he's also the star of the Watchers series. It's now up to 10 installments, and I've got all of them here, and they are just amazing and great to watch. But it won the UFO Best Film and People's Choice Awards at the UFO Congress back in 2014. But coming up on February 2nd, now also I do want to Also mentioned that L.A. now has his own radio show right here on KGRA2 as well. We'll talk about that. But on February 2nd here in Los Angeles, along with Richard Shaw and Brien Foerster and Chase Kloetzke, there's going to be a press conference at LAX announcing the results of DNA testing on the elongated skulls of Peru. And that is something that is very anticipated, and it's going to be well attended here in Los Angeles. And I've got to say, we're all wondering what is going to be announced. We're wondering, LA. We're on the edge of our seats. But before we get to that, which is why you're here tonight, you've been doing radio and television for a long time, but now you're here at KGRA. How is that going for you? And is there a lot of pressure to be a radio host like that?
Well, I've been doing radio for, I don't know, over 10 years off and on. And I think TV is my best medium, which is why when we do the KGRA show, the cameras are rolling in the studio. So, people listening to KGRA are getting the audio feed, but the following day I put it up on my YouTube channel and it's got the video feed. So I'm in the studio. We usually have a guest on, which we Skype. And so it's the best of both worlds. We're doing live radio and at the same time recording for our YouTube channel and TV. We're about to go on a new TV station called La C TV, internet-based. We're excited by it, and they reached out to us. They saw the content, they saw what we were doing up on my YouTube channel, and they go, "Wow, this is a lot more than just a YouTube channel," and it is. I mean, we have a proper studio here, a proper TV studio, and we've got. Sometimes I'll actually edit the film. I've turned most of the editing of a TV show over to Sarah Ray. And she's been just doing a bang up job. She's not more than an intern. She's studying film. So this is hands on for her, and it's great. She loves it. She's doing a bang up job, which allows me to work on the films I'm working on. Fatima 2 will probably be released. It's pretty much finished, out the door sometime in April. What we discovered, what's in Fatima 2, in my opinion, is groundbreaking. And most people have never heard the kind of information that's in that film. It's just not part of the mainstream. You don't hear this. And we spent 2 weeks in Portugal interviewing people. And then later on, while I was actually in the edit mode, I'm in post-production, working on the film, we had sort of a groundbreaking piece of information, which we held the presses and interviewed this man. We're actually publishing his book on my publishing company, Spiral of Life. His name is Jose Machado. And he had access to the sanctuary in Fatima, where the original glass plates, which were used in the photography by a photographer by the name of Ben Oliel in 1917 are kept. These are the original glass plates. In other words, they are the negatives of what was actually taken over that field in 1917, over 100 years ago. He had access to them. This man is forthright. We had a team of 4 people, including Richard Shaw, grill him on a Skype interview and held his feet to the fire about the image that's in the glass plates, which shouldn't be there, yet it's there, and it's not a smudge, and it's not a chemical. It's an object that's there, and that's the basis of this little book that he wrote, and it's also. In my opinion, the people in America have never heard this. They've never seen this type of photographic evidence, ever, guaranteed. We've got it, and we'll be breaking that out sometime in late March, early April.
Yeah, something went down that day, for sure. And the one image that everybody sees is one thing, but it's the eyewitness accounts of that day say to me something more extraordinary. I don't know. I don't know if it's ET or if it's something else or something interdimensional, something plasma. I don't know, but something definitely went down, and there were tens of thousands of witnesses.
Yeah, the witnesses were up about 70,000 people. Many of the witnesses went on the record, and remember, in 1917, there are no planes in Portugal. I know it's hard for us to imagine that. Most of the people in the field had never seen any type of aerial phenomenon at all.
Right.
It's not there. It's not in their grid. And some of the witnesses say, I look up and saw a dull silver disc. spinning, rotating, shining, changing color, throwing color on the ground. I mean, what we discovered, and we went back to the 1917 original handwritten eyewitness testimonies. That's what we're drawing from, not things that are 20, 40 years later. 1917, these are the original witnesses in the field. This is what they saw. And the picture that is painted for us, we just follow the evidence. The picture that's painted for us is completely different than what most people think happened in that field. And, you know, in the beginning in Fatima 1, right up front, I said, look, we're not here to disparage anyone's belief system. People can believe what they want to believe. And I say, you know, millions of people go to Fatima each year. Millions of Muslims encircle the Kaaba stone in Mecca. Millions of Hindus celebrate Guru Puja. Millions of Buddhists worship at thousands of temples all over Asia. So people have the right to believe what they want to believe. We're not attacking anyone's belief system. It's not a hit piece on people's belief system. What it is a look at the so-called miracle of the sun and what really happened there. Can we look at it as a UFO, a ufological event? In my opinion, it was. That's my opinion. Mm-hmm. Fatima 2 extrapolates on that. The film is called Strange Phenomenon because, again, going back to the 1917 records, interviewing a lot of people for the film, what we discovered were people had burns on their skin. People's clothes were instantly dried. It had been raining all night. People were soft to the bone. When this object flew over the crowd at less than 100 feet, okay? Less than 100 feet over the crowd, people's clothes were instantly dried. Some people had burns on their skin. Cars, the windows of cars shattered. Car hoods flew open. Gasoline spontaneously combusted. I mean, this was a very, very intense flyby. And a lot of people thought it was the end of the world. I mean, people were absolutely freaked. So this isn't this, you know, benevolent thing that it's been painted it to be today. It's not. It traumatized a lot of people. I believe it was a UFO.
When does this get released?
We'll release it probably maybe end of March, more than likely April. We're going to start, you know, right after the February 2nd press conference. We'll start advertising this, start getting it out, get the trailer out, and show people. I mean, I honestly believe it's groundbreaking information. And, you know, the photograph that we had that was taken that day, 100 years ago, by this photographer, Ben O'Leal, is extremely telling. Is it like a dull silver disc in the sky? No, it's not that at all. But what's there shouldn't be there. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to see it and get you back on the show once it gets released. Now, about let's this is this press conference on February 2nd is a big deal, and so let's talk about what actually was tested. Let's start there. How many skulls?
Well, we tested over a period of time out of the Paracas museum, and it's really interesting. You know, it's like people, the archaeologist that we were working with, who works at the ICA Museum, ICA, the ICA Museum, told us that it doesn't matter if we take samples from private museums. No one cares. You can't take entire artifacts out, but you can take powder and hair. And we took hair from the Paracas Museum well in advance of our official investigation to ICA, where we were presented with about 10 skulls to take DNA. We took, out of a 10, I think we sampled 9, and a lot of it was very badly degraded DNA. Some of it was good. We definitely got haplogroups, and this is why we go back to the hair samples and other samples from the Paracas Museum, because believe it or not, the stuff in Paracas was dug up a lot closer to when we took samples than the museum pieces that are 40 or 50 years old. So what happens there is there's an acropolis, a graveyard called Chongos. It's right by Paracas. Paracas on the west coast of Peru. It's right on the ocean. Beautiful place. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. There's always an ocean breeze. The climate is steady. It doesn't rain there all year. It maybe gets a quarter of an inch of rain. There's no fog for the most part. And it's about 75 to 80 degrees every single day with a trade wind blowing. It's just magical place. I love that kind of a beachfront, hotel. And we stay at some wonderful hotels there. So that's where Chongos is, about maybe 15, 20 minutes inland from the coast. And this is where this desert area that looks like the Sahara, it gets less than a quarter of an inch of rain. And the sand is mixed with salt. And so you get a very unique area to bury mummies in, because the sand and the salt and no rain preserve these mummies to the point where when we took and took hair samples and had them tested, the lab came back and was questioning their authenticity. They were saying, well, these don't look like ancient samples because they're too fresh. And we said, yeah, we know. These were just dug up fairly recently by a Wakaro, grave robber, and was given to Senior Juan, the curator of the Paracas Museum, which is a private museum. And all of the skulls that Senior Juan has are registered with the Minister of Culture. So this is all above board. We took the hair samples and we had them tested. We took other samples and also had them tested.
Well, okay. So, how many skulls, DNA samples came from the museum?
I would say about 4 or 5.
And then how many from the desert?
Well, they're all from the same place. They're all from Chongos.
Right.
So they're all taken from Chongos originally. Even the ones at Ica. There's about 5 or 6 from Juan and Paracas. So we've got over 30.
Okay, we've lost the internet connection here with you. It's dropping in and out. Can you hear me just fine?
Kidding me.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, it's coming back. It sometimes cycles. So let's go back to this one more time.
Okay.
So there were what I'm trying to get at is the how many skulls were actually tested from. So there were so many from the museum, and I get that. How many from the private hands?
We had, let me sneeze, hold on. Fighting a cold here. We had at least about 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 from the Paracas Museum, Paracas History Museum, another 9 from Ica. Then we have the Oregon skull, which was in a private collection in Oregon. And then we've got Jared's skull, which we call the cinnamon skull, from another private collection, which we had tested. That's quite a lot of artifacts. Yep. And I'll tell you right off the bat, mainstream archaeology and academia will do what they always do. They'll stand up and shout contamination, because that's always their fallback position. Right. Everything's always contaminated. So my retort to this is, how many samples do we have to run which show what they do show, the results, what the results show, before people start standing up and taking notice? How many? 50, 100?
Right.
What is it going to take? Because what we're seeing is something that, in my opinion, could eventually rewrite history as we know it.
Okay, now let's talk about these for a second. The Oregon skull, how did you guys come across that?
Things can be very serendipitous sometimes. Triple word score on Scrabble.
Right.
Richard Shaw is at a conference, actually a UFO conference, and he's going to show, I think it was either Watchers 7 or Watchers 8. I think it was Watchers 8. And he's back in the back with all the techies trying to make the thing work. And they finally get up on the screen and they figure out what's going on. And they're showing a picture of one of the elongated skulls, which we had tested, by the way, from Paracas. Now, this guy comes up. Richard's never met him before. And he goes, I have one of those. And Richard goes, what? He goes, yeah, I have one of those. And he takes his phone out, scrolls through some pictures, and goes, here. Richard freaks, immediately sends me the picture. And this guy has always wished to remain anonymous, so we've kept him anonymous. The backstory is his father, or his grandfather, rather, the man's grandfather was a medical doctor. The medical doctor, the grandfather's brother, was an engineer and apparently traveled all over the world in the 30s and 40s and 50s, building bridges and doing all sorts of engineer stuff, right?
Right.
And when he's down in Peru, as close as we can come to what we think the provenance of this skull is it was either presented to him or he bought it or whatever. It's definitely a museum piece. It says La Oroja in red calligraphy on the frontal plate of the skull. The skull has been shellacked. So more than likely it was either in a private collection or a museum piece. And it made its way to this doctor who held it basically for decades. And we were allowed access to it. We took multiple samples. That's all in our film, Watchers 10, DNA. And the results from that were absolutely astonishing.
And now we have the cinnamon skull. Tell us about that one.
The cinnamon skull came to light, about a year ago. And I was contacted, Brien was contacted, and for whatever reason, this particular person went with the History Channel Ancient Aliens, who had it tested. It came back T2B, which is Middle Eastern. And then I know the owner of the skull. His name is Jared, and we were in contact. And so Jared got more material for us to sample, and I paid for that out of our DNA fund, and we sampled that, and that results will also be part of our study. The cinnamon skull was it's called cinnamon just because of the color. It looks like cinnamon,
right?
But it's definitely a female from 20 to 26 years old, and it's got some peculiar morphological oddities, structural oddities within the skull, but shouldn't be there. And that's part of our presentation. It's a multidiscipline presentation. We've got our archaeologist, Mondo Gonzalez, who will be presenting the DNA evidence. Brien Foerster, of course, will be there, giving us sort of the backstory on this. I will open the ceremonies by, telling what our hypothesis is, followed by Richard Shaw's 6-minute film, followed then by Brien, who will, give an overview of these very enigmatic elongated skulls that are found worldwide, followed then by Chase Kloetzke, who will tell us how she tagged and bagged everything and the protocols we used to collect the evidence. And then we bring in Mondo Gonzalez, our archaeologist, who will give the DNA report, followed by Rick Woodward, an anthropologist, who will really put the icing on the cake, in my opinion, with the research that he's done, followed by Dr. Michael Alday, a medical doctor, again, looking at the skulls, multidiscipline. Dr. Alday believes that this is not the result of cranial deformation, cradle headboarding, when they mold a child's skull. We know that exists, and we're not saying that wasn't practice. We're saying that the Paracas skulls, many of them, are not the result of cranial deformation, cradle headboarding. And of course, after Dr. Alday is Dr. Malcolm Warm, who's a chiropractor, who weighs in because of some of the morphological differences. He contacted us. I interviewed him, went down and spoke to him. So he's coming out and he's presenting also. Last but not least, Marcia Moore, a forensic artist who brings to life what these entities may have looked like 2,000 years ago when they roamed the planet.
How many laboratories were involved with the testing?
Originally 3. And we are looking for a bona fide geneticist because one of the labs that we used had next generation sequencing. And that's very, very sophisticated, but it takes someone who is actually a geneticist and can look at basically the sequencing of DNA and how it sequences and match things up. It's complex. It's very complex. And we don't have anyone on the team. So we've got data from that, but that data cannot be presented until we get a bona fide geneticist on our team. So if any of you are out there that are a bona fide geneticists and know what I'm talking about when I say next generation sequencing, you know what we're up against. The other 2 labs, the main one is the Paleo DNA lab in Canada. Stephen and Renee Frat Pietro are our geneticists up there. We've met them. Richard and I went up, we interviewed them. Stephen did extensive work on all of the samples, many of the samples. The other lab wishes to remain anonymous and is not in the United States, but wishes to remain anonymous. It's Jimmy, it's really strange. When you get into this stuff, you see that there's a certain paradigm which is upheld. And as long as you uphold that paradigm, you're okay. But the moment you go against that paradigm, the moment you begin to find things which, well, maybe this isn't what we all thought, immediately you're railed against. We've had hit pieces written against us. I won't mention by whom, but we've had hit pieces. And these people have never been to Paracas. They've never looked at the actual DNA evidence, but they're so sure it's a contamination, which, of course, is the default argument that they use. This is why the multidiscipline study, when you bring in our anthropologist, our medical doctor, and chiropractor, it becomes, in my opinion, a 1-2 punch. Is it conclusive? No, it's not. But this is why more study needs to be done, more testing needs to be done. But we feel obligated to do a press conference now, bring what the information that we have out to the public to create awareness, and then raise funds. We need to do a real archaeological dig in Chongos. And to the best of my ability, that hasn't been done since Huyoteo was there decades ago. We need to go down 30 feet to the people that were there 3,500 years ago that settled the area, the royal tombs. We want to go back to the original inhabitants. We want to carbon date it and see that carbon dating about 3,500 years ago. We carbon dated one of the mummies that we unwrapped, which was 1,935 years ago. And we unwrapped that mummy. That was the baby skull, which was just incredible. And we DNA tested that also. But that skull was at the end of the Paracas era, which is about 2,000 years ago. So it fits the timeline. The Oregon skull we carbon dated, and that showed only 800 years old. So it's very, very interesting, very enigmatic. And quite frankly, and I mean, I'll say this at the press conference, we have more questions than we do answers. But surely something is going on. I mean, these people aren't staking their reputation and their livelihood on promulgating a ruse or a canard. That's not what's going on here. This is hardcore scientific evidence. As a Christian, there's a biblical element to it. I get that. But that will not be presented at all at this press conference. I mean, yeah, we can talk about the Nephilim. We've got 3 historical records, the Torah, the ancient Jewish writings, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the pseudepigraphical Book of Enoch, all talking about this hybrid race known as the Nephilim that were in the Levant 3,500 years ago. That's always been the hypothesis, that there was a diaspora of these tribes. They fled because there was a war being prosecuted against them, and they fled the area. They ran for their lives, essentially. And that's been our hypothesis. And what's interesting, some of the DNA, and I'm just sort of tipping my hand here, I think when people tune in the live streaming, and they see the evidence that we present, along with the morphological differences, look, if fair-minded people are going to look at this and go, you guys are onto something, you're right. More research needs to be done, but you're definitely onto something.
We need to take a break right here, but you can answer this actually with fairly quickly. Did each one of the 3 laboratories have the same 15 skull samples?
No, some of them do, some of them don't. We mixed it up.
Okay, got it. Okay, let's take a break right here. When we come back, we'll pick up right where we've just left off. Our guest tonight, first up tonight, is L.A. Marzulli. They're going to do a press conference on February 2nd announcing the DNA results. And we're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hello, I'm Julie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go back, Lee Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest, L.A. Marzulli. We're talking about the DNA test results that are in on the elongated skulls of Peru. The press conference will be on February 2nd. This segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Use that promo code F2B blend. You'll get 15% off of your order. Go to the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. L.A., I got to tell you before we move on, you know you've arrived in radio when you've got your own coffee. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying,
yeah,
man.
no kidding. Congrats, man. That's great.
It's pretty good. It's good coffee, too. Now, let's talk about these results a little bit. What type, did you do nuclear testing? Is it mitochondria? What kind of testing was done?
Well, the testing was just for basically DNA. We're trying to get both nuclear DNA and the mitochondrial DNA. The mitochondrial DNA, we were able to extract. The nuclear DNA, one skull yielded a little bit, but not enough to really read. So we are still, this is why it's problematic. This is why we realize now we need, and I hate to say it, but we need fresh material. We need to go down and find a royal Paracas tomb, a mummy which has not been ever touched. Take that mummy, bring it into an area where we've got total control over the environment. So when we open the mummy, people can't go contamination. So we've got to have a sterile room. I mean, all this costs thousands and thousands of dollars. We need to unwrap it, and then we need to go to the rib cage, because where the ribs are, that's where the good stuff is. And if we can find nuclear DNA there, then we're off to the races. Now, allegedly, there was a British film crew that came in and took DNA samples from a artifact called the Waikiki skull. And Brien Foerster alerted us to this, and we went with Brien and we saw this. And they did extensive testing on it. They created a hour-long documentary, which is aired. I don't think it was aired over here, but it was aired over there. And they took ribs. I was just there a few months ago, and I saw where they took the ribs. They were able to get the haplogroup, the mitochondrial DNA, but they were able to get the elusive nuclear DNA, and they stated it was from an unknown primate, which, quite frankly, that's what I would be leaning to with the Paracas, unknown primate, something that's not on the charts, and yet it's there, but we don't know what it is. Now, I've tried to get a hold of the film crew and get some of that information, but it's almost like a dead end. So I can't vet whether that's true or not. I'm going by what Senior Renato, who's an anthropologist, that's what he stated. I met with him and we talked it over, Brien and Brian's wife Irene, and that seems to be what it came back as, an unknown primate, which kind of makes sense. I mean, part of our hypothesis is that we might be looking at a subspecies of human beings with these skulls. We don't know yet, but that's why it's a multidisciplined approach. And our anthropologist, Rick Woodward, Dr. Alday, Malcolm Warren, the chiropractor, it's when all these guys start weighing in on this from their position of expertise, it really starts stacking the deck, in my opinion. It really does. I've always felt that there was something going on with these things, but I'm a layperson, and I've learned along the way in the last 5 years. When I went down there the first time, I didn't know what a zygomatic arch was. Now it's ancient history, or a sagittal suture, or a lack of sagittal suture, or the two parietal plates, the frontal plate, the occipital plate. All we've gone to school. We've all learned together, and of course, just the protocol of taking DNA. When we went and sampled the Oregon skull, and we went back and sampled all the Ica skulls, we were dressed head to toe in lab garb provided by the Paleo DNA lab. And when we drilled into the skulls, we had compressed air. So we would clean the surface of a skull off to remove any contamination, any surface contamination, and then drill into the skull to get fresh genetic material. Now, that was immediately tagged and bagged by Chase Kloetzke. It was on the table for less than a minute. Seriously. We would go in, we would get the powder, it would fall on a fresh piece of paper. The paper was just unopened from Arima paper. We would fold it up, we'd give it to Chase. It was tagged and bagged, or we folded it up and put it in a vial, a small plastic vial, which then was labeled, tagged and bagged, and gone. So this stuff was like exposed to the air for less than a minute, and we're in full DNA lab suits. Hairnets, masks, double gloves, double arms, full-length bodysuit, boots over our shoes. It's the real deal. And we changed our suits every time. In other words, if we brought out one skull, we had one suit on. Then we would disrobe outside, put on another suit, and then come back in. We used compressed air to blow. We used it on each other to make sure that we weren't, carrying anything over or whatever. After we went in with the Dremel tool, we used compressed air to clean the area, and then went in and got fresh material. So, look, it'd be great to go into a sterile environment with air filters and all that, but we didn't have that, and the Ica Museum doesn't have that. One of the more astonishing things that we discovered at the Ica Museum was we were allowed to go into the museum because it was closed that day. Go figure. Again, another serendipitous moment.
Right.
And the very elongated Chongo skull, which is the one that most people see when they Google the stuff.
The big one.
The big one. The real big one. It says Chongos on it.
Right.
They took it out of the glass case, and we got to handle it. We weren't allowed to take DNA, bummer, but we did get to handle it, and we were able to see the morphological differences, which were also in that skull. We were all just blown away. You should hear me on video. I go, oh my gosh, just like that. When the curator, the director of the museum was holding it, we go, turn it over. We want to see the underside of the skull. So she turns it over, and the moment I see what I'm looking for, I go, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm just like blown away because of certain morphological differences. There is something that I've talked about before. Again, when we talked about it a little bit on this show, the idea of a lack of a sagittal suture. Many of the Paracas skulls do not have a sagittal suture. This goes from the frontal plate, right, our forehead, and connects all the way back to the rear plate and divides the two parietal plates. There is a disease called craniosynostosis, which usually happens in the elderly, where that sagittal suture will fuse, but then it creates a sagittal crest. We don't see that in the Paracas. And the cinnamon skull, for instance, is between 20 and 26 years old, and we think it's a female. There is no sagittal crest, no sagittal suture. So why is it that craniosynostosis seems to be so predominant among Paracas? Is it genetic? This is why more testing needs to be done. We've got a good-sized database right now. And, we've got everybody's weighed in. We have a little booklet. It'll be about 120, 130 pages with, 4-color printing. We'll be selling that in the months to come. Probably I'll have it probably by the end of February, along with the DVD. So if you can't watch it on live streaming, and we are doing live streaming, all the proceeds from a live streaming will go into the DNA on the trail fund. In other words, for more research. The DVD and the booklet will not. So, we need to get a payday here somehow, right, and keep the lights on. But
right. Well, let me ask you, L.A., if it's not cranial boarding, then what are you suggesting here?
We will be suggesting that what we're looking at are genetic anomalies, that there's something in the DNA, which we don't know what it is because we don't have nuclear DNA, and we need a lot more samples and we need fresher samples. We need, like I said, we need samples that aren't so stinking degraded because they've been in a cardboard box for 40 years, like the Ica Museum, with all due respect, but that's, they're back there for 40 years, Whereas the stuff in Senior Juan's museum, like the baby skull, that arrived in his museum about 5 years ago. Our first time down, we saw it. So 2013, it had just arrived there. It had just been dug up, as it were. So it was very fresh, extremely fresh. And when we unwrap that's in Watchers 8, I believe.
But if it's not boarding and it's genetic, so right, now we are suggesting that they are born this way. Again, what are you suggesting if that is the case? And we're talking about with the carbon dating, if I'm understanding you correctly, that they were born this way 12, 13, 1,400 years apart.
Yeah. The original Paracas goes back 3,500 years.
Right.
The end of the Paracas is 2,000 years.
Right.
So something is definitely going on. There's a lithograph that Brien Foerster sent me, and it's from 1848, and it's a lithograph. And in that, it shows, as the story goes, that they found a mummy, and they unwrapped it, and they discovered it was a female who was pregnant. So they decided to go and see what was inside the female's womb. So they opened it up, and lo and behold, there is a baby in there with an elongated skull and teeth, and that can't be. And that's from 1848. It's called the Chudy mummy. And, this is what drives me nuts about this. Does anyone know where that is? Is it in Lima at the Huyoteo Museum, more than likely, or was it up in Cusco? We don't know. And it's very hard to get any real information about anything. I mean, it took us basically 4 years before we got written permission from the Minister of Culture to go down and just collect DNA samples. And I remember I was at the Huyoteo Museum, I think in 2015, maybe 16. And I looked at the director, and we had an audience with her, which was fantastic. And we got to go in the back and look at we didn't get to go to see the skull room where 10,000 skulls are kept. and 300 mummies. They collect this stuff, but as you'll hear in a moment, no one does anything with it. And that's I'm painting with a broad brush. They do research, they catalog and look at these things. I measure the skulls, I get all that. But my question to her was, the director, has anyone done any DNA testing on any of these skulls? And she looked at me without any hesitation or equivocation on her part. She said no. And I was just taken aback by that. I said, you mean to tell me that no one has done any DNA testing? And of course, it was, our translator, just to make sure. And she said, no DNA testing has been done. I about fainted. I mean, I was flabbergasted, completely taken aback by this. So we know that there was a study at one major university in the U.S. about the Peruvian people, and allegedly the Paracas were included, but we're not sure whether the archaeologists tested any elongated skulls. We don't know that yet. So, once again, we've got our data, and for those people out there who are all they want to do is shoot us down. I don't care what you think about me. Look at the data. Look at the data. You can boost all the ad hominem attacks, and I'm showboating and grandstanding, and I'm in it for the money and all the nonsense that's out. Fine, great. But I'm down there, and by the way, I don't take a salary from any of the donations that come in. But when people go down, like Mondo Gonzalez, I have to pay him for his time.
Right.
And our basically the couple that has financed a lot of this. I mean, they've given us a lot of money to make this happen. So everybody gets paid but me, and I'm not whining, but morally, I don't want to. I don't want to be accused of being Amador here. Say, yeah, one for you, 1, 2 for me. I'm not taking anything for this. I don't. So I make my money on the back end, through DVD sales or whatever. But this costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to make happen. And, for the armchair critics and all these guys, look at the data. I don't care what you think about me or the team or anything else. Just look at the data. Look at what the data is saying when we reveal it. You tell me where we're going wrong. Listen to Dr. Michael Alday when he talks about the morphological differences in these skulls. Listen to Rick Woodward, our anthropologist, who talks about and has studied this. And he was the one that really discovered this. And that's why he's, coming out and presenting at the conference. So it's hard science. And again, I want to stress, there's no answers. We're not going to say, oh my gosh, we found the Nephilim, or, oh, it's terrestrial. We don't know what it is we're looking at, guys. We don't know. Raise more questions than answers. But something.
Let me
I think it's genetic.
Right. Let me ask you this, though. The same testing is going on right now with Gaia, right? And their Nazca mummies. They're pulling DNA results, and they've got 4 labs around the world that are working on this too. Do you think that Peru is aware of the focus that is going on right now with Nazca and with Paracas about this, and how important it is with everything that is going on right now? And why doesn't, and that's the first part of the question. The second is, doesn't Peru have their own DNA testing lab in the country? Apparently they don't.
No, they do not. They do not. There's no DNA testing in Peru that I'm aware of.
That blows my mind. Yeah, I've heard this before. It doesn't make any sense. Talk about being flabbergasted. And yeah, are they aware about the focus that is on Peru right now around the world? Are they aware of this?
I think they've been aware, and they manage the agenda very carefully. Like when you go to, I'll diverse, kind of sidestep a little bit, but it all ties back to the same overarching theme here. It's a carefully managed agenda. For instance, when you go to a place like Sacsayhuaman, and I've been there twice, and it's just mind-blowing. And Brien Foerster took us there the first time. And, when you come up over the rise and below you is this plaza with these huge megaliths, these huge boulders, stones, some of them weighing way over 100 tons. And they're put together seamlessly. There's no mortar, and they've withstood thousands of years of earthquakes, and it's seamless construction. And then above it, you see the Inca slop, which doesn't look anything like what Sacsayhuaman is, the original builders. Now, all the tour guides from Peru will tell you immediately, oh, it's all Inca. The Inca built this, the Inca built that. And we just sit there and we just laugh, because are you trying to tell me that a Stone Age culture who had copper tools was able to cut andesite? Show me. And you can't. I mean, I got a guy that sent me a video. He's got a copper chisel and he's trying to cut andesite, a block of andesite. Just cut it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do something with it. Guess what happens? After like 2 or 3 hits, the copper chisel is completely useless. It's dull.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work. And see, this is the type of dishonesty, disingenuous nonsense, which is rife in academia. Don't confuse us with the facts. Don't, obfuscate, deny. If someone has a different opinion, like the guy here in Southern California, my neck of the woods, I forget, I think he was at UCLA, but I'm not sure, but he was a geologist, or he was part of the faculty, and he was saying, wait a minute, these dinosaur bones, whatever, I mean, it's got like living tissue. He was immediately dismissed because of his Christian beliefs. Well, we don't want that type of religious bigotry here. Well, he sued. Guess what? The data showed that there were living tissue in supposed fossils, 80 million years old or whatever. Pick your year, right? And it's like he won the lawsuit. That made national news. The guy won the lawsuit. It's like, hello, there is a deliberate obfuscation. Go see. If you don't believe me, I would make this movie, except Ben Stein's already made it, and it's excellent. And it's called Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed.
Right.
And the bottom line, anything that goes up against the Darwinian paradigm is immediately dealt with. So we're not trying to go up against the Darwinian paradigm. All we're saying is we've got hard cold data. You guys need to look at it. More testing needs to be done. Here's the data. This is what we discovered so far. We've got more questions than answers.
And back to Peru and the Ministry of Culture and Antiquities down there, how they're dealing with this. There is also the possibility of tourism elevating the status of Peru, its importance in all of humanity and our history and where we came from and our culture. It's all right there, and it seems to be focused on them right now, and they just don't get it, and the interest is there. I don't understand why they're not cooperating and allowing this and investigating or investing from the government back into this, because it's a paradigm shifting situation that is going on down there right now.
Unfortunately, what we have found is there's a laissez-faire attitude with much of academia with this. I mean, you would think that any anthropologist would be beating his way immediately down to Paracas and securing permits and studying these things. It's just not so. We're the only group I know, I could be wrong in this. I'm sure there's others who are attempting a study, and I know that the one archaeologist went down several years ago. I get that. But, did he actually sample any Paracas? We don't know that. He wouldn't answer us. So we don't even know whether that was done or not. This may be the first team within the last, let's say, 5 years that have had any result from 2 different museums, different samples. We've got over 35 samples. We need a lot more. We're just beginning a database. We're just beginning the research. We'd like to do a lot more. But just to get the permit was 4 years, Jimmy. 4 years of red tape and paperwork and this and that. And, what labs are you going to send it to? And, oh, my gosh, it's like, we're just taking some samples, guys. It's not like we're looting the Peruvian treasury here. It's just, so Peru needs to wake up, with all due respect, in my opinion. But also, I'm not just bagging on Peru. Universities, the university system in the United States needs to wake up and not be afraid of the results. If it goes against, look, these guys are supposed to be science, and you go where the evidence takes you. We're not fudging the data, right, like they did with climate change. Oh, well, we don't like that data. We'll just throw that out and create our own data so we get the results that we want. We're not doing that. This is what it says. And that's why we feel at this juncture in our research, we need to go public, let the people know, let people with some deep pockets that want to invest in this thing, invest, because that's what it's going to take.
You know, there are reports that I have read that there are in Nazca 40, that's a 4 and a 0, pyramids. And they are there completely untouched.
Yeah.
There's no money. They don't want to go. There's no archaeology being done. There's no science being applied. They are just sitting there degrading. And there's no
when you want to go and do something, it takes you 4 years. It is absolutely look, there was this one site Brien Foerster took us to. It was called Camacho, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one site that Senior Salvador, the Wacaro, discovered, and he took Senior Juan there, and then, and Brien, and then us. And it was a massive grave. It was a common grave on a high place, and everyone there had blunt force trauma to the left side of the skull, which means a guy with a war club, whacked them on the skull, side of the head, killed them, and then they fell into a pit, very shallow grave. And we counted one time when I was there 60 skulls, and many of them had that, blunt force trauma. All were elongated. What's that about? And get this, I had a forensic anthropologist lined up. I was going to pay him, fly him down, put him up for a week, pay him $1,500 or $1,000, $1,500, whatever, for his time. All the airfare, wine him and dine him, a whole deal. Come down. You got to look at this. What are we looking at? The last minute he pulls out. You know why? He was afraid. He was afraid of the blowback. So the last time I was there, they put a new highway in. Get this, Jimmy. They put a new highway in, which cuts off the drive from Lima to Paracas by almost an hour. That's great. Big 4-lane modern highway. Love it, okay? The problem is the highway is within a half a mile, maybe even less, of this one particular site, where before there was nothing there. Nothing. It was out in the middle it was in the boonies. Now, what happens is the squatters come in and they stake out the land, even though they won't own it for maybe a decade, they stake it out. And that last time I was there, which was just this year, Mondo and I found it. And sure enough, it was staked out and it was still there, but that's going to be lost forever. We'll never know. And I think there's that site has vital information of what happened to the Paracas people at the end, because there was a mass slaughter there. Why did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, February 2nd, very excited about this, L.A., and congratulations on that, and we'll get you right back on the show after they're announced, and we'll see you down there.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. L.A. Marzulli, everybody. LAMarzulli.net. Okay, up next after this short break, Rick Shaw is here, Richard Shaw, and we're going to talk about near-death experiences and, of course, the Best of Watchers, this series. I'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by New Pharma. GNU Pharma. Just click on the banner over at jimmychurchradio.com and go and read about the science behind New Pharma. Natural solutions to health and wellness. Use the promo code F2B when you click on that banner, F2B, and you will get 33% off of your order. Okay, next up, Richard Shaw, who directed the Watcher series, 11 Watchers episodes. The documentary series is now available on DVD and on Vimeo Streaming Media, and it's hosted by, of course, L.A. Marzulli. Watchers, by the way, has sold over 100,000 DVDs to date. Independently, in 2015, Richard hosted, produced, and directed The Torah Codes and To Darkness, that documentary which discovers all of the Torah Codes. Now, tonight, we're going to discuss NDEs, the near-death experience, which is featured in a segment on the new Watchers Best of DVD. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Richard Shaw. We call him Rick around here. Rick, good evening.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you? Thanks a lot. It's great to be on this evening. By the way, I love your break music. It's terrific.
That's a guy named Doug Aldrich. I would like to say it's me playing guitar, but it is not. No.
It's great stuff. Really punchy.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing. Now, the Watchers. Now, when I remember when you and I met, and we met by accident one night. We were at a conference together, and then I found out. We found out who each other were, and that was great. And that was fun. But I went back and started watching all of the Watchers again. And I've got to say, you really must be proud, because the way that you approach and the way that you do these documentary episodes on all of these subjects, it's well done and it's well presented. Do you look back at it? Would you do anything different?
Well, when we first started, we were running on a shoestring, literally, and the quality, the production values increased gradually through the series as we were able to fund it a little better. That's my only thing. I wish that I'd had a larger crew and could have done more effects and made the show pop even more than I was able to. But, you know, you do what you can based on the budget you have to work with. And I think what we tried to do is make a very non-preachy, very scientific expose on all of these paranormal topics that are verging into the supernatural.
Yeah, and you're right, though. It did get bigger and cinematic, and certainly you guys started traveling and doing things. But I got to tell you, it's just presented in such a way where you get to the end of one of the Watchers episodes, and you're like, man, you know what? I've just got to watch this again. And that's no, I'm not kidding. I don't say that about everything.
No, thanks. I mean, we did have a time there where people were doing Watchers parties, and they would, you know, depending on how many were done at the time, they would go in and invite all their friends over and have a Watchers marathon. Like, it would last all day, you know, and maybe they're still doing that. I don't know, but now it's like a 14-hour stretch of material to watch.
Yeah, I remember that. Watchers 8 is out, man. It's out. It's, you know. I do remember that. Now, the near-death experience, which for me is a real one. I've interviewed so many now, and when I say real, what I mean by that is there is something going on. I think everybody's experience that has gone through it is independent. Because everybody's got a different take on what has happened to them. And I've had some fascinating interviews on this show. For you, what's your definition of NDE?
Well, I came to know Dr. Jeffrey Long back in 2004, and this was before I even met L.A. Marzulli. And because I was really impressed with his research, the website that he has up there at ndurf.org is probably the most complete expose of the near-death experience in human history. I mean, he has something like 4,000 tales of people's actual experiences that they've submitted. And then he has a little questionnaire that they each fill out. Well, were you conscious during this? Or what caused you, you know, did you have an accident? Or was this some kind of a problem, a health related issue? Or what caused, you know, and then you go through this whole list. So it's, you know, some of it you read it and you go, oh, people made that one up. But then there's others that are just stunningly, incredibly interesting. And it was Dr. Long that introduced us to Howard Storm, which was one of the most amazing near-death experiences I've ever heard. And I've been reading about this and studying it for decades. And now I think we have a really good idea of what happens when you die. I mean, we kind of know the vague details, actually a little bit more than vague, of what happens to you, and it's nothing to be frightened of unless you've been a very mean person. That's all I could say. But I think it's different than a lot of what the church thinks it is, and I think it's different than what atheists think it is, and somewhere in between.
Well, tell us about Howard, because he wasn't, well, I want your take on him, but by all accounts, he wasn't really the nicest guy either.
No, at one time, and he revealed that in the Best of Watchers that we just put out, because we thought that people needed one DVD they could pop in and see all of the coolest segments from the entire series when they don't have 14 hours to watch the whole thing, or they might not want to spend $100 to buy the whole set. This way you can get 10 of the hottest segments from the series. And so we closed that series with segment 10, Howard Storm's near-death experience. And, it was okay the way it was edited when we first put it out. But, I thought I could make this better. So I went back and found all of the original interview with Howard, and I added a bunch of stuff that wasn't in there. I replaced the music. I added new graphics. And now he kind of reveals in this new segment, which I call the director's cut of the Howard Storm NDE, he reveals that he really wasn't a nice person. He was more or less he was a shot putter. He was a big strapping dude in those days, and he would use that to kind of bully people to do what they wanted him to, you know. He basically was not easy to get along with. And so he found himself in this really horrendous place after he passed away in a hospital in Paris. And the whole story is just really gripping. It really is. I mean, it's just and I think what's so interesting about Howard is just the depth of detail that he put into it.
Well, so what happened? He had something, my memory, which isn't, the best, but he had like an ulcer or something.
He's called it a perforation in his small stomach.
Okay.
And so essentially what that did was allowed all this hydrochloric acid to come pouring out into his upper chest and diaphragm area. So it just kept leaking out, and this went on for hours. Now, the doctors here in the States compared it to having not just an inflamed appendix, but an actual burst appendix, where you have waste material just going into your vital organs and into your body. And in his case, because it was this acid coming out of his stomach, he thought he had been shot because he had this burning sensation in his chest. But that wasn't the case. He had stomach acid leaking out, and it kept leaking out and leaking out. And he said not only was he having this toxicity going into his body, but he was dissolving his own organs from his stomach acid. And you can't go on living like that very long. A few hours and you're dead. And so he said it just got so painful just to breathe that at a certain point he just couldn't do it anymore, and he stopped breathing. Next thing he knew, he had popped out of his body.
And now let's continue with this. So he has his NDE, goes in the hospital, things happen, and he's got a little bit of a life review going on with him. It reminds me a little bit of Daniel Brinkley, in that before Daniel was struck by lightning, he wasn't the most pleasant guy to be around either.
He was a former military guy.
Right, and he liked to beat people up,
I mean, he was involved in blowing up stuff with people in it, at one point. That's Daniel Brinkley, not Howard Storm.
But, right, not Howard Storm. So,
yeah.
but
Howard Storm was an art teacher at that point in his life, and Daniel Brinkley got struck by lightning and did have a life review and saw how he treated others. And what's really fascinating, Jimmy, is that when you have this life review, you not only get to see what you did, how you screwed up, but instead the tables are turned. You become the person that you've inflicted pain on.
Right.
And you feel their emotions and their humiliation for what you did to them. And that's just that's a terrifying thought. But that's why we want to treat people in a good way, so we don't have to experience that later. But that's how we learn. And so then, in the case of Daniel Brinkley, he had these beings come up to him with these boxes, and they were showing him the future. I don't know if you remember that part, but that's in his first book called Saved by the Light.
Right.
He's written like 3, I believe, and he's died more than once from various things. But in Howard's case, he didn't really have a life review so much as he realized that he was being led down the primrose path. And what's interesting about Howard's experience is that he was led what he thought he was being led down the hallway. But before that, he realized he saw this guy laying in the bed that he had just been laying in, and he didn't know who this person was. And he said, well, how could they? And it looked like himself. And he's going, well, how could they have made a wax figure of me that quickly? That's what he was thinking. But then he realized what a ridiculous notion that was.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sitting on the bed where he was just in, looking down at himself. And there was another man like next to him that he was trying to get his attention, and he was yelling in the guy's face, and the guy obviously couldn't hear him because Howard was in another dimension at that point. So he couldn't get anybody's attention. But then a couple orderlies say, "Okay, come on, Howard, we got to take you down the hall." And he's in his bare feet, and he said he could feel in the bottom of the soles of his feet the floor as if he was touching it with the palms of his hands. He had that much sensitivity to what was going on. And not only that, he said he had 360-degree vision. He could see in front and back at the same time. Now, don't ask me how that works, but that's what he said. So they led him down this hallway, and he said there was no more pain. Everything was like super crisp, and it was like hyper reality at that point, not like the life that we have now that we're living. This is like hyper reality. Your body's back to its, what we think we could call it, our natural state. And he's being led down this hallway, and then he realized it's getting darker and more diffused, and he can't see anything anymore. And then he realizes that there's more people with him, and more people, and they're whispering, and then they start making fun of him and hitting him and beating him up. So then he goes, okay, it's, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. He said he was very Nietzsche back then. He was like really trying to, it's like, okay, I'll take you guys on. But there were just too many of them, and just started ripping his skin and hurting him. But what was really interesting is that he knew these people. He knew each of them by name. And he just called them people that had died, humans. In Howard's own words, he said, people that had totally missed the boat. And so now they're in this kind of weird limbo area leading down to a very hellish existence. And he was just like, basically laying on the ground in a puddle of blood and material, and they're beating him, and pretty soon he said he couldn't even react anymore. He was just laying there on the ground in a fetal position as they were beating up on him. And then a voice kind of came to him and said, "Pray to God." He didn't know how to do that, because he basically, he was reading like Jean-Paul Sartre, Nietzsche, and he was basically not doing anything that we might call religious. Not that to get to heaven you have to be religious, because I truly believe God looks upon your heart. It's not what you do or any rote that you do in church that gets you there. It's basically who you really are inside. And so Howard started, he didn't know how to pray or anything like that. So he started like quoting poems that he learned in school and songs, lyrics to songs that did remember, "My country, 'tis of thee," and that wasn't working. And he finally, remembered back when he was a little kid, there was this one song, "Jesus loves me, this I know," and he started like saying that. And he said anytime he used the word Jesus, that these demonic forces, it was like you were pouring boiling oil over them. At least that's what he told me in private discussions.
Well, let me jump in right here for a second, because and dropping Nietzsche for him at this point suggests obviously that he wasn't religious and was probably atheist or didn't understand the religious aspects of what may have been happening to him at this point. But it's
right.
Suggesting,
that's totally correct.
Yes, and so it's suggesting with his description about this, and I read this a long time ago, so I'm just going off of my memory. But I remember that he was led like to the gates of hell. That's where he was on his way to, along with everybody else. That's what was going on. Am I wrong? Or that's his story, right?
That's his story. I mean, it didn't get down to where, the fire and brimstone aspect or anything like that. But it seems like, and I've studied enough of these that people that have ended up in that same place relate very similar experiences. and this isn't to like freak people out, but this is just to basically say this is what Scripture is there to try to get us to avoid that place. And, he just never believed that. And, of course, Jean-Paul Sartre wrote this book that Howard read his work. And there's one really famous book he wrote called Nausea. And it's just basically the futility of life. And it's almost like, like no matter what I do, I'm screwed, essentially, in that book. And to put it, very simply.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what Howard was reading. And truly, we mean more than that. Where there's more to what we're doing than what comes out in Sartre's book. It's painful to read that stuff. It really is. But so anyway, the difference between Howard's story and Danny and Brinkley's story is Danny ended up with this very detailed life review. Howard doesn't mention that so much, but Howard does mention being lifted out of there. And he said it was Jesus that did that. Now, I've asked him about it. When we picked him up, we flew Howard in to do that interview years ago for Watchers. And so I took him out to dinner that night, and it was like one of the funnest evenings I've ever had. I mean, here's the guy that I've always wanted to talk to and ask questions of, and I'm sitting across the table at him, and I wanted to ask him things that normally people wouldn't ask, like, so what did you learn about UFOs and aliens and all of that? Mm-hmm. And what would Howard say to all of that? And he said, well, people might think I'm a little crazy if I said, Howard, I don't think you're crazy at all. And he said he was shown, when he asked if there were other beings in the universe, he was shown what he said were a parade of images. And it started out with normal kind of humanoid people and then got, more and more detail, and some almost looked like they had ears like Mr. Spock. And then it went almost into undersea creatures and this, that, and the other, until things that he had never seen before, until it got so weird he asked him to stop. Now, that's what he told me.
I've never heard that part of Howard's story.
Yeah. Yet this totally resonated with me, Jimmy. I really believe that there's other beings in this universe.
Sure,
I really do.
Sure. And now, a couple of quick questions before we hit the break. His accounting of how it went down for him, the tormenting, the beating, and so forth, that, he went right to the edge of hell, but was pulled back. Are there other accounts similar to his from people that haven't read Howard's account that is similar to his?
Yes. And a lot of times what happens is apparently it doesn't go well for a person to try to commit suicide, because I've read cases of that and they end up in the same place. But what's really interesting, there's a guy that's on Dr. Long's website by the name of Dr. Price, and he wrote kind of a review of his experiences on near-death experiences. And he said that, what people end up in this terrible place. And he said in his experience, it was like mean people ended up there. And, it wasn't like lesbians ended up in hell or something like that, which a lot of the times the church promulgates these views based on ancient texts. And I think that we have a very loving creator. And basically there's just, when you try to kill yourself, you're ending a life that God gave you to do something with. There was a purpose for your creation and for being here on this planet, and you have a job to do that only you can do. Like what you're doing here tonight, you're doing it in a way no one else can do it quite like Jimmy Church does. This was what you're created to do. And, I'm supposed to make films. That's what I'm supposed to do. And everybody, if we were all like a an index finger, we wouldn't get much done. So it takes all of us working together to accomplish something larger than ourselves.
Do you think that, and I agree with that, taking religion off of the table for a second, right? Let's take that off of the table. If he, and I'm talking about Howard, if Howard didn't have his religious take on things today, he's a minister, right?
He became one after his experience.
He became one after his experience. Do you think that if we take religion off the table, do you think that his take on what happened to him took on a religious slant because of his beliefs that were later, but maybe that if you take religion off the table, that his experiences weren't religious? You know, I don't think Danny and Brinkley puts a religious, even though he may be a religious guy, but his experiences and others that I've interviewed, they don't have not all of them have the religious side of it. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I do.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, some people see Jesus. Some people see long lost relatives. They have different experiences that are custom tailored to their own situation. In fact, I asked Howard this. I said, okay, so you're in Afghanistan and you're in a Humvee and you're a soldier there and you run over an explosive device and your Humvee is blown into a million pieces and you're instantly, killed and parts of your body are laying all over the field in a million pieces. What happens at that point? And he said, when someone gets killed that quick, they don't often realize that they're dead. And they're kind of standing there go, what happened? And you're out of your body. You don't feel any pain. You basically are completely conscious. You know that it's you. We take these memories of our existence and who we are with us into the afterlife. And he said, what normally happens is that they meet someone that they know and loved who has already died, comes to pick them up. How are you? How are you, sweetheart? It's just wonderful to see you. It's been a long time. And this is then they have this realization that they're in another level because it's happened so fast. It's such a shock to the system that we're given this moment to adapt, which I think is really loving and kind, that we're not just, treated like flotsam,
Well, yeah, and you don't have the option to come back.
Not at that point.
No, you wouldn't, so it would be a little bit different. We need to take a break here, but that right there is an interesting take on all of this. Because if you, like Danyan, right? He was struck by lightning, but he didn't, his body wasn't blown apart. He had the option to come back. He had to heal, and the same thing happened with Howard. But you're right. What if the opposite happens, right? Where that's it. You just go from one realm to the other instantly. How are you dealing with that? You don't have a life review. You're just there.
You're there.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Richard Shaw. And when we come back, we're going to continue the near-death experience conversation, but also the Best of Watchers is out. I kind of want to know what's on there because I've seen them all. How do you make choice, right? This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation. and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Talking to Richard Shaw about Howard Storm in this feature that he's got on the new Watchers DVD about the near-death experience of Howard Storm. And this section of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by New Manna, emergency food storage for you and your family. 25-year shelf life, MSG and GMO-free, made right here in the United States of America. And just use the promo code Jimmy, Jimmy. Click on the banner. It'll take you over to our section of New Manna. Enter the promo code Jimmy, and you will get an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt with every order over $100. Now, Richard, that's very interesting about if you die instantaneously. I mean, you're done, right? You die, and you don't have the option of coming back, that you're exposed to this. And you don't have a choice, and that's got to be completely traumatic. I mean, it's the most traumatic thing ever, and you need somebody to take you through all of this. In Howard's case, he was able to, and again, I'm going off of memory, but I was so fascinated with his near-death experience, and I jumped into it. I remember him saying that he started asking questions. and he wanted to know about the future, right? About the world. That's what I would have done the exact same thing, by the way. What did he find out about that?
Well, he basically, he didn't really go into telling us about the future so much, other than things that he was curious about. The future was more or less revealed to Danny and Brinkley in his experience, more than Howard's, but Howard just got a lot of practical information that I thought was really interesting. And the other person I was trying to remember a minute ago, remember when I said that people who try to commit suicide have a rough time of it. And a really great story is from a person by the name of Angie Fenimore. And her story's up on YouTube. Fortunately, you can find all this stuff in seconds. If you just go to YouTube and go Angie Fenimore's near-death experience, you can watch it. But she basically had enough. She had been abused when she was a kid. Her life wasn't going good, and she took some narcotics and left her body and ended up in the same place Howard was in. That's why I kind of connected the two of them. And what I thought was fascinating in her experience, she ended up in this place where people were reliving their worst moments in life over and over and over again. It's like they're stuck in a loop, and they could get out of it merely by asking for help. But they don't do that. And this one guy had been there for centuries. He was wearing a dirty robe, and he was just, and she thought he just looked disgusting. And she looked down at him and thought that. And as soon as she had that thought, he looked up at her, and their eyes met. And then she realized that everything you do at that point is like a telepathic communication. So if you're thinking something about someone like that, they know what you're thinking. So then she was all embarrassed.
Yeah, I don't want to be in that world.
No.
If you know what I mean. If everybody could read everybody's thoughts and everybody had telepathy, it would be noisy.
Oh, it'd be well, it'd take a while to just get used to such a thing. But she had the same thing. She called out to God, and she said there was this tiny little light and it's exactly the way Howard described it. I thought the two of them had a very similar experience. And she heard this voice saying, "Is this what you want?" Because she wanted to die. And she had a discussion. Again, she met Jesus Christ, and she had this discussion with him, and she ended up back in her body. Now, what was really strange at the time that we did Howard's video, my wife and I were living on Beechwood Avenue, right under the Hollywood sign.
I lived on Beechwood underneath the Hollywood sign.
Did you?
I lived across the street from the Ranch Market.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course.
Right there at the I guess you would call it, the stone, what is that? It's like a gate.
Isn't that kind of close to the Hollywood land?
Yeah, it says Hollywood land on the top of it. That was in my front yard. No joke.
Then there's like a horse pasture trail a little past that where you can park your car.
Yeah, I used to cross the street right there and go to the Ranch Market and have breakfast every day at the cafe there. Anyway, for anybody that's listening right now, if you're from Hollywood, you know what we're talking about. Everybody else, they don't care. So I just loved living up there.
It was cool. It just got a little crazy, and I wanted to move away because it got so noisy. And one night, some guy goes buzzing down Gower Avenue, which was right behind our apartment at the time, and there was a shootout going on. So I was hearing this pop, pop, pop. I'm going, this is getting a little too close for comfort.
Time to move to the valley.
Yeah, so that's what we did. But anyway, all that to say, there was a girl who lived on the end of the street, and we met in the alley behind the place where we park your cars. And somehow the topic got onto Watchers, and I told her what we were working on, and she just started screaming. She goes, "Oh, incredible. She said, I have to talk to you." So the next day she came back to me, and I found out that she's a musician. I'm not going to state her name on the air or anything like that, because this is kind of personal part of what she was saying. But she had the same thing that Angie Fenimore had. She got tired of her career. She just wanted to go. She told me, I just wanted to go meet Jesus. This is what she said. And she's a rock star pop artist, lived in Hollywood, two houses down from where we lived. And she went into the bathtub, into warm water, took some sleeping pills, and basically left her body. And her boyfriend came over, couldn't find her, couldn't get her on the phone, gets into the house, finds her blue in the tub, not breathing, and was so pissed off that she had done this. He picked her body up. I mean, basically it's her naked body. He picked it up and threw it out into the front yard, thinking she's dead. That's it. And somehow they called 911 and they revived her. I mean, I don't know how it's possible, but she said she went into this same place like Howard described, and also Angie Fenimore described. She ended up in this place, terrifying, and she, at a certain point, as she got deeper and deeper into it, she said she couldn't remember who to ask for help. It's like those memories were disappearing. They were eroding away. In that respect, that was scary, what she told me. But I said, you have an incredible, this is more than coincidence that you're telling me this, because we're interviewing Howard this week. And if you want, I will introduce the two of you. So she hung out on that shoot that we did with Howard Storm. She stayed the entire day. And they got to talk, and he was able to talk her through some things. It was really cool, because I'd only met this girl like a few days before, and now here she is meeting the exact person that she needed to meet, who would understand her story and know she's not crazy. So that kind of thing is really interesting. But Dr. Price, who wrote an article on Dr. Long's website, Dr. Long is the guy who has the Near-Death Experience website, basically has said that a lot of people, even after they die, seem to get a second chance. That they're met by this being of light. They talk it over. They, realize, if these people didn't believe in the afterlife, or they thought that you just go into a dark hole in the ground and that's it, that's not true. And here's what it is. And they're given another chance to live out their life, and boom, they're back into their bodies again when that happens. Now, the only thing that can't happen is if you're blown up or your body's burned to a crisp or something like that, then you're not going to come back into your body and try to make things cool on the earth. You had your chance, essentially. So, but I do think that's really interesting, and it kind of flies in the face of some of the real hellfire and brimstone messages that I've heard since I was a kid.
Well, what kind of information did Howard get when he started asking questions? What did you ask him about that?
Well, I said, the one thing was the UFO thing, which I was interested in and he was saying, he's basically quoting what Jesus told him. I said, okay, what did Jesus tell you about meeting aliens or something like that? And he said, the UFOs, they're real, but he said you shouldn't probably try to interact with them. You should, and we know that that's really true. I mean, there's good and bad sides to that phenomena, as you well know. Those of us that have traveled in these experiences and have talked to people that have actually had them know that there's some people have reported good experiences, but the vast majority of them haven't. So, I think that there's some things that will be made clear to us later that just currently isn't. But then there's also the idea that the church seems to be really hung up on the gay lifestyle and all of that. And I was kind of grieved over that, I guess. It's not that I'm trying to promote one lifestyle over another, but I do believe that Jesus loves us. And Well, I asked Howard about that. He agreed, and he when he started his church, he brought gays into the church and gave them jobs to do things that normally wouldn't have happened. I think that's really cool. And also, Dr. Price in his report said the same thing about people who saw loved ones and all of this. There's a lot more going on than our little brains can comprehend at this point. And, of course, one thing that Dr. Long said that was really incredible was that this one guy said he was shown all of this wisdom and understanding, and for a while you understand everything. No one even you don't have to ask questions. It's just revealed to you how this works and how that works, and time, space, gravity. I mean, the whole deal is suddenly clear to you. Without having someone to explain it to you. But when you get back, you don't remember any of it. And the guy told Dr. Long, well, of course I can't remember. It's like trying to put an ocean of information into the thimble that's my brain.
Are you suggesting, and I've asked this question a million times on the show, so this isn't the first time, but are you suggesting that E.T. is religious? Look, if God is universal, God, the biblical God, right, and created everything, well, that means on Zeta Reticuli, right, there, and I've always wondered that. Is E.T. religious, Richard?
Well, my answer to that would be we don't know in enough detail to give you a truthful answer, but I really think that there is this idea that we're dealing with possibly more than one kind of ET entity, and also that some may be from other planets, we don't know, and some may be from an interdimensional contact. And when you get back into biblical texts and you try to understand what these prophets were trying to tell us, and I always tell people, I said, look, we got to look at this stuff with fresh eyes, knowing what we know today and understanding technology. Some of the stuff that is being described by Ezekiel or by Abraham in the book of Genesis, or the experiences they had were being told to us by prophets 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, and they didn't know how to describe it. I mean, this is like how would you explain how HTML code works to someone back then? They'd have no idea, first of all, what the internet was. This is why I think in some of those ancient texts they say in words that cannot be uttered, because they have no idea what they mean. It's not like you can't say the words. It's like they don't mean anything to them. How would I explain nuclear power or any of those things to people of that kind? But yet they were getting visions of these things, and they met beings that had unusual abilities. And this happened when Lot and his family was rescued from Sodom and Gomorrah. This happened when Peter was rescued out of prison. And all of this is so similar to abduction experiences that we're told about. I mean, and LA and I argue about this together all the time. I said, look, I can't believe that all aliens are evil, because that upsets the balance of the universe. And plus, if there's supposed to be a war going on in heaven, how can you have a war that's only one-sided?
Well, and the other aspect is this, and it's a very simple one. E.T., interdimensional or not, physical on another planet or not, if we go with the biblical side of things, they were created by God no matter who they are. And so my question is a very simple one. Does that mean that the little gray alien had a little gray Jesus also die on the cross for them? Did they go through this very same things?
I would probably question, because as far if we're talking about I hate to use some of these biblical terms because it doesn't really apply in my own vernacular anymore, because I think people are suspect of it. But basically, we're talking about fallen angels. Fallen angels meaning that they were into their realm at one point was they were with God. They were created beings, and some people that I've talked to believe that they might have been cherubs at one point, that there's described as being small beings, this kind of thing. But a lot of them became really evil and did bad things. But yet these are created beings. Now we're in a kind of a different bag than they are. We haven't been in the realms that they've been in and lived in those dimensions. So we don't have that insight. This is why I think that when you go back into the book of Enoch and you read that and you try to understand what's going on there, that they don't get forgiven for what they did. We do, but they don't. We're kind of in a separate bag where, according to just basic Christianity, we're covered by what Jesus did on the cross for us, and these guys already had way more abilities than we do, and they have no excuse, and they're not forgiven. That's why they're chained up against the wall. But what I think is really interesting is that in Enoch, when I was a little kid and I read this one passage in Genesis, and it says, "And Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him." I'm going, what? Where did he go? How did that happen? And I was so curious about it. And in those days, I didn't know there was a book of Enoch, that was another ancient text that was never given to us. We didn't get it till, centuries later. And it talks about when he's in his bed and suddenly a feeling of dread comes over him and he doesn't know what it is. And then suddenly two glowing beings appear by the head of his bed. Now, what is really cool, Jimmy, about this is that when Ellie and I were recording Dr. David Jacobs, who's like a real authority on the whole abduction experience.
Right.
I asked him, I said, in your experience, have you had people say, is there like a sphere of influence that these beings have? I mean, how far does this telepathy extend? And he goes, "Oh, what a great question. No one's ever asked me that." I go, "Okay, great." And he said, apparently when people are having this visitation, that they'll be watching TV or something, and an alien is coming into the house, and they're entering like another place of the building, and it starts affecting them, their mind.
Right.
They start getting sleepier. They start kind of drifting off, until as they get really close and they're almost in the same room they are, they might notice them, and the next thing they know, they're unconscious. Now, this is exactly what's described in the book of Enoch. He wasn't made to go unconscious, but he had this feeling of dread come over him because his brain was being tapped into by a force he had never experienced before, and he didn't know how to handle it. And that's what happens to us when these ETs come in. And this is what happened with Captain Robert Salas and his wife. I talked to her. I said, "Did you see this happen?" And she was knocked unconscious when Captain Salas was abducted in his house in Manhattan Beach, California, back in the 80s. And this was the first time I'd ever talked to a couple that had both experienced it and could both give me details. I thought that was really fascinating. And then the next thing, he says he's being floated out through a window. And then we find out that that's how everybody gets out of their house. They pass right through the wall. So there is this thought, and I know like Chuck Missler has said this, that we could be living in a digital simulation, that none of this is real. And until we're out of this existence that we're currently in, we won't really discover reality.
Well, that's the two big questions. the two fundamental questions that we've all had, everybody on this planet that is living now or is dead, going back to the beginning, is one, what happens when we die, and two, are we alone in the universe? That's the two fun. That's what drives us.
Yeah. But now that we've been able to bring people back from the dead through electronics and restarting their heart and giving them drugs and getting them back into their body, we can actually hear what these people's experiences were. And they're shockingly similar. That first of all, when someone dies, they pop out of their body. They're usually like floating over their body. They look down and they can see that they're not affected by gravity any longer. They can see themselves laying in bed. And then they have a thought, I wonder how my kids are doing, or whatever that they're concerned about. And that thought, they're immediately, they've taken flight and they're headed to their house, and they can see through the roof. They can see how their kids are doing and all of these different things. Other people say that they shot up into the air at a 45-degree angle at tremendous speed, and were out in space flying around. The Earth is like disappearing behind them. All of a sudden, they have this ability. Other people say that they go through a tunnel and little children have had this thing and actually come back describing, it had colored bricks inside, they say. I don't know if it's a wormhole that we go through. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it, but they're usually are drawn to a light in the distance. They see this light. They know they got to get there. The light is emanating with some kind of divine love, some kind of power that pulls us into that light. And then once you're there, that's where you have your life review. And there's usually a couple other angelic type beings. I'll call them that because I don't know what else to use to describe them. And they come, they put their arms around you, and all of this knowledge and memories come pouring out. Everything that ever happened to you since you were born to the point where you died, and you see it just in a brief instant of time, the whole thing, but yet you re-experience your whole life like in a super fast-forward kind of state, and you remember what happened. And like I was saying earlier, if you were bad to someone, you experience what they felt. You basically had this experience, and you've learned from it. You've been to the school of life, and now you're there. And then there's a barrier. There's something that you have to cross. Some people say it's a fence. Some people say but they know that if they go through that, they'll never be able to come back. And some of them are worried, well, I have children that I need to take care of, or my wife really needs me, or I need to be able to provide income for my family. And so they're, if it works out, they're allowed to come back. And all of a sudden, they're slammed back into their body rather rudely again, and allowed to live. And sometimes the whatever caused them to die is taken care of. And a lot of these people are miraculously healed. Get a second chance.
Let's take a break right here. I've got to get you to hang on, Richard, and do a little overtime. I'm not ready to end this conversation just yet. So let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Richard Shaw. We're going to do some overtime, everybody. So just relax, and we'll pick up on the backside. But we need to ask those questions about reincarnation. That's another aspect of all of this that comes into play. And you know what? And all of that and much more. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Richard Shaw, talking about the near-death experience. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter, but listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, doing a little overtime with Richard Shaw, talking NDEs. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and this segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by Bearing Optics. It's the night vision that we both use and approve of right here at Fade to Black. So go over, click on the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. Get over to Bearing Optics and call Alec Hoffman. He's a Fadernaut, and get yourself some night vision, because when you do, you'll be able to go and see your very own green chrome balls. That's right, Richard. I said that live on the air. You can go see your very own green chrome balls.
It's an honor to be able to go in overtime with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, this is, and I seriously mean that. But when it comes to reincarnation, now we're starting to conflict with some religion out there. There are others out there that say reincarnation is exactly what we do. But how does that get involved with the near-death experience, and what is really going on there?
I asked Howard about that because, as you probably know, some of my Jewish rabbi friends that I've come to know because of the Torah Code project that I had done really believe in that. They really think that we've been reincarnated. In fact, they believe that the whole idea of being born again, that's what Yeshua was talking about, was being reincarnated. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to promote any sort of religion or Christianity or Judea ideas. I'm just telling you what my experiences have been. And they said that the whole idea of reincarnation started with Abraham, and basically his concubines took that information and went east with it and ended up where we have India today. And at that point, the idea of reincarnation went a little into extremes. I mean, it went into animals and everything else. And I don't believe that's the case at all. But there are a number of instances where people and even children seem to know things about other people that, how could they know these things? To me, it's very intriguing. I don't have an answer for it. There's no way that you can prove it. Personally, would not really be all that interested in being reincarnated again, to go through this again. But I suppose if Jesus asked me to do it, I'd do it.
And what did Howard say about it?
He didn't. I said, so is it any, did you get this idea that we've been there before, being heaven before, that we came from there and now we're here? And he said no. He said he didn't get that indication. That he said this was kind of the first for us to be here. So he doesn't believe in it. I'm still the jury's out a little bit for me. I don't want to say one way or the other, because if I don't know something for absolutely certain, I'd rather not act as if I know everything.
Yeah, right. Well, what do we do with somebody like Richard Dawkins? A staunch atheist, reported scientist. That's what he says, but he hasn't done anything in a laboratory in about 50 years. But that being said, I kind of feel a bit of pity for him. I really do, because he's missing out. And I also think, who's another guy who I think is just frigging amazingly brilliant and is too wrapped up in trying to improve the human our fleshly bodies, and that's Ray Kurzweil. Mm-hmm. Sure.
He's trying to do stuff with nanotechnology, and I can understand that, but sometimes I feel like saying, Ray, you're concentrating on an aspect that if you really could see past this life, you wouldn't want to be doing it.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Well, look, there's an important question here. Whether you believe in God or not, or any of that, if immortality is possible and it's right around the corner, Richard, if you are able to get onto a neural interface and download your brain onto a chip and exist in that binary world, right, on a chip, on a USB drive, and you are able to exist there, the questions of your bad or good life are erased, right? That's it. You have no concerns now. You don't even have to worry about morals or character, because you are now going to live forever. Reincarnation is taken off the table.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Captain America Hydra guy that was, remember, he put his whole brain into the computer and lived that way. He was like an evil force that wanted to stay alive, and so he put his consciousness into a computer. There's lots of movies out about that same kind of thing.
Yeah, the movie Tron. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, Tron's another good one. Sure.
So what would you do about that? I mean, now and how we're going to cross this line, right? And let's say that there is the God that is in the Bible. He exists. How is he going to deal with that? with souls and consciousness existing on a computer chip where you're not going to die.
I don't think that he'll allow it to go on very long. I think there'll be something that happens, and everybody kind of feels like we're entering into a new era. Doesn't that seem to be a prevalent feeling that everybody has? Like, there's stuff that's happening right now that we've never seen before. There's AI and stuff that is getting so complicated and intelligent. Like, there was that article that came out on TED Talk just last month about these tiny little drones that would have facial recognition software, and I'm sure you saw this.
I read it.
It went viral.
Yes, I read it.
And these tiny little drones you could hold in the palm of your hand, and you could basically tell them to attack the person that you've given them the facial information on, and it has like 3 grams of plastic explosive inside, and it basically hits the guy in the forehead and blows his brains out. So it's selective war. And they show another shot with a C-130 dumping hundreds of these drones out over war zones and just going right after the bad guys, not killing anybody but the bad guys. But then all of a sudden, then there's the idea, well, how would we know that the government wouldn't want to turn that on its own citizens? It's and when stuff like that starts happening, that's a paradigm shift. We've never had that kind of technology before, and we're right at the threshold of all of those things happening, and something massive has to take place.
Now, I'm wondering if let's go back into this artificial reality, right? You and I are there. We download ourselves or upload. We upload ourselves, and you and I are walking around on a chip together, right? We're living the movie Tron, right?
Yeah.
And then we get attacked by a gang. Right, a gang that is living on the chip,
or a computer virus.
No, a gang, a gang. Some more, and we die. We die on the chip. Our consciousness is on this chip, but we are killed in this artificial reality. What happens? What happens to that soul, Ray Kurzweil? Right.
Well, that's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you. But I think that it gets to a point where if we're disregarding the Almighty in our own lives to the extent where we think we can handle to reposition our own souls into a computer chip, then we're not putting ourselves in His loving care. And I think that's one thing that has been really emphasized to me by everybody I've talked to that's had this experience, whether originally bad and then changes to good, is the amount of love that we feel in the afterlife is beyond anything that we've ever experienced before. In fact, Howard said that if I would take my mother's love and multiply that by 100, it might start approaching a little bit of the love I felt when I was in heaven. So to put my brain into a computer chip means all I'm doing is extending the agony of not being in that surrounding area of love.
But how else would we travel to the stars? Right? So we can't travel to the stars with our existing meat sacks. Can't do it. We're going to die. And we need to go 10,000 years in one direction, right?
Well, yeah, something has to happen to our physical bodies.
So, this is.
Have you seen the movie Passenger?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That was a terrific film.
And it was a pretty good ending too, as well. As melancholy as it was a pretty good ending. And what would happen to the ship itself physically? But let's go back to this. This is what's really weird. Now, let's say that you and I go and we get mugged in the dark alley of a computer chip, right?
Yeah.
And we die. And those that are running the simulation or running that world physically on the outside go, oh, okay, Rick Shaw just died. So let's re-upload him again, because they've got you on a USB drive, right? They've got your consciousness right there. So then you're not dead. You're actually over here. So they upload you again, and you and I can go back to that alley, but this time we're armed or whatever. Or we have,
sounds like it sounds like the makings of a great movie,
right? And but now we avoid the alley and then we take a left. And I'm just saying it's a bizarre concept that Kurzweil and DARPA and Sandia National Labs, all of them are working, and so is Elon Musk, and I'm sure Bill Gates and Google are all working on the software to get that interface going between us and a hard drive.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say that your idea is very much like the movie Live, Die, Repeat with Tom Cruise.
Right.
And, where they could go back and retry their, redo their steps, that kind of thing. There's also a book that came out 2 or 3 years ago. It's called In League with a UFO. You ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
And the guy that wrote it is a little paranoid. We wanted to interview him for Watchers, and we could never get him to agree to do it. But basically, he's talking about what happened to the Roswell craft and where they took it and the experiments that they ran on it. And they discovered there was equipment on board the ship that would allow them to transmute someone's soul to a different body. This is the closest thing to trying to describe something that you're asking me now about, except to the fact that if we're all living in a digital simulation, that has been presented as one possibility of life today, that would be something else. But they had stuff aboard that craft that was super advanced. It's kind of an interesting book, but there was also a real dark side to how they were using this technology against us.
Very interesting. And speaking of that, how did you, with the Best of Watchers, you have all of that great material. How did you end up what'd you do? Draw straws? How do you pick the best of?
Oh, LA and I went through a list together. And I thought, if we did alien implants, because, we know this stuff exists. It's real. It's physical. You can measure it. You can look at it under electron microscope. You can do EDX analysis of it and find out what metals these implants are made of. And this has been done 17 times, and we just happen to be blessed by getting to work with Dr. Lear on this. So segment 1 in The Best of Watchers is the whole alien implant saga. It's basically what was in Watchers 7 and Watchers 8, the whole implant story, from detection to x-rays, CAT scans, and then finally into surgical removal of it, and then finally taking the implant into the lab and examining it and telling you what it's made out of. And so that's segment 1. And it's kind of a long segment because it's very scientific, and it goes through it a step by step. And I think if someone has any doubts about this, when you actually can see something and hold it in your hand and it's a physical object and it does not look like anything from this earth, then you have to say, this is real. We're not just making this up.
What else is on the Best of?
I can go through each segment really quick with you. The segment 2 is the Shroud of Turin, where we went in and we interviewed the Right Honorable Barry Schwartz, who was the guy back in the late 70s who actually photographed the shroud and did tests on the fabric and all of that, and basically gives us his ideas of what he thinks it is. And also we interviewed Dame Isabel Pixet, who is a particle physicist and also a muralist. She's actually drawn paintings that are in the walls of the Vatican, and she was kind of like a child prodigy, and she believed that the image on the shroud was created by an event horizon that basically imprinted through some sort of release of energy a projection of the body of Christ. And what's interesting about it, and until we really talked at length with these two folks, I didn't realize the reality of if you were wrapped in a shroud from end to end, and you were laying on a cold, hard slab of stone, which it was in the Garden Tomb, that the skin of your body would be, weighted down and pushed into that fabric, right? Your legs and your buttocks and your shoulder blades would be smashed into that stone.
Right.
Because that's what skin does. But that's not what we see on the imprint of the shroud. And the only way that could have happened is if the body was levitating when this burst of energy took place.
And what else?
That's really fascinating to me.
Yeah. I think that it's real, right? I think that the shroud is not a hoax, right? I don't think it was manufactured. But
no, I don't either. I think after talking to especially Barry, who has no, dog in the hunt, essentially. Barry's Jewish, so I mean, talking about Jesus Christ is not something that would come up in his normal conversation. And I know how my rabbi friends are, and I have to kind of be very careful with them. And yet I get questions all the time about these things. So I think it's a very interesting relationship that I have with my Jewish friends and that I've worked on with the Torah codes. But Barry was very neutral about the whole thing. He was approaching it as a scientist and had incredible camera equipment. And there's not any paint on this thing. There's not any evidence of burning or anything like that. This is like an image that was somehow etched into this fabric, and we don't know how it was done.
Yeah, right. Exactly. When does the DVD come out?
DVD's ready now. I mean, you can go to my website or LA's website. If you go to pinlight.com, you can order it there. It's 2 hours and 23 minutes. It was a really in-depth thing because the biggest complaint that we got through the years is that Watchers isn't long enough. So I told LA, I said, I'm going to put a beefy amount of information on each of these things. So we have like the skulls and stone from Peru. We have segments that were in Watchers on the Torah codes. We've got the giant of Kandahar. We've got the Catalina cover-up, which really is fascinating.
Yeah,
and we have
a great story.
The Kumburgash UFO, which I did an analysis where you can see the actual aliens, with their faces sticking out the side of the craft. I mean, this is something that Dr. Lear gave me his master of that video that was shot in 2009 in Turkey, and I put it into the computer and did tests on it and enlarged it and slowed it down. And when I did that, I'm going, oh my gosh, there's several other creatures here that you don't normally see until you enlarge them, and they're there. You can see their heads turning and their eyes and the reflection off their eyeballs. I mean, you can see all of that.
Wow. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Richard, again, and I can't wait for the press conference on February 2nd.
Oh yeah, we're getting ready for that too. That's a big deal. It's coming up really soon.
Yeah, you've got a lot of stuff on your plate, my friend, and thank you for taking the time and hanging out. And then we'll get you back on the show.
That's my pleasure.
After the press release and the press conference. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You got it. Richard Shaw, everybody. Now, it is very simple. It's pinlight.com. If you go over to jimmychurchradio.com, just click on Richard's name right there. It'll take you straight over to pinlight.com, where the Best of Watchers is available. And also the information, if you do want to attend the press conference, I think you can do that too as well, but you got to do it through the website and go and check that out. And address, location, times for the press conference on February 2nd are right there. Want to thank Richard Shaw. Great conversation tonight. But I am serious about this aspect of it. I'm talking about living virtually on a computer chip. I'm looking at some of your comments here on Twitter, and one of them is, well, consciousness is one thing, memories are one thing, but the soul is the other. Wouldn't it all be together? If you're going to download, I know this is a question that we all have, really. But if you went and did that, you did a brain dump onto a chip and you existed there, isn't it all of you? I'm just saying I'm assuming that memories are ones and zeros. I understand that. But your soul has to be electronic too as well. That's got to be positives and negatives. That's got to be ones and zeros. It would have to be, right? But let's just say that you are now living on a chip. Do you have, and you're immortal, now what happens to laws? What happens to morality? Because if you died on the chip, you could then be re-uploaded again and you would continue living, right? So what happens if we take death off of the table? And what happens with heaven and hell in that case, if they exist, if you are living on a chip? What's going on there? And if everybody else in this artificial reality doesn't have any concerns of life and death or reincarnation, because the reincarnation happens off of the uploading of yourself once again. These are all the things that we have to consider. So then, what do you have? Do you have police? Yeah, you would. You would have to have the moral police. I would, right? You would have the soul police. But that's what would have to happen in that world. It's something that I just wrap my head around and try to think about this as often as I can, because with everybody out there that is obviously dealing with the neural connectivity to computers and the ability to make that leap and to get yourself onto, what happens. And this is the other thing. Can two of you exist at the same time? And this is what I'm saying. You download yourself. Right? You download yourself, you upload yourself onto, do you have to, what your current self that is alive in your body, do you end that? Do you have two minds going at the same time? What's right? Or does one have to end for the other to continue? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because the possibilities when it comes to quantum mechanics and quantum theory, if you have two identical things operating at the same time, then you are living in both, right? So, do you, at that instant, you upload yourself onto a chip to be immortal, do you end your life out here? Can the two exist at the same time? These are all questions that have to be answered at Sandia or DARPA, at the Google complex, where they are doing this right now as we speak. And I've said it before. If I'm Bill Gates, right? If I'm Zuckerberg, if I'm Bezos or Elon Musk, and you're sitting on that kind of money, the questions that all of those billionaires have had, all those rich men, the industrialists, they want to live forever. They don't want to die, right? They don't want to die. So you know that those guys are working on this right now. They have to be. I'd be wanting to try to figure this out. So what are we doing with all of those moral questions that I present right here? What would you do? How would you handle it? Think about that. Fade to Black. I want to thank, it concludes another excellent episode of Fade to Black. Got to thank L.A. Marzulli for coming in tonight. Richard Shaw. Amazing conversations. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. They cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, Fader Night. Open lines all night long, and John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom live. But until then, I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.